Look,
Okay,
I'm
but
not saying that
that's
we
not
don't.
the question I asked.
What?
My question is, and I just need a yes or a no, do you believe the streets of Chicago would be safer?
I don't believe that we should narrow it down to just police officers.
You don't want to just add police, but the question was, would Chicago be safer if there were 5,000 more police officers on the street?
We cannot incarcerate our way out of violence. We've already tried that, and we've ended up with the largest prison population in the world without solving the problems of crime and violence. The addiction on jails and incarceration in this country, we have moved past that. It is racist, it is immoral, it is unholy, and it is not the way to drive violence down. We cannot return to the same failed strategies that got us here in the first place. Under the previous presidential administration, we requested more federal resources to address gun violence in our city. We continue to make that same call. We have made significant progress on our own, but there is so much more that we can do if we had real support from the federal government.
So if you guys don't know, this video is about Donald Trump, because he threatened to send, I don't know if he said the National Guard or the military or more police to Chicago. And this is Chicago's mayor saying that that will not help us, that will not benefit the city. If anything, that will harm us. And he's practically saying that putting more people in jail, even though Chicago does have a lot of crime, is racist. And that if Trump was to do that, it's a very racist thing, and that they don't need more policing, but instead they need more federal funds. They need more money. Obviously, here's what I'll say. I do think we should invest more into poverty-stricken neighborhoods. This is not necessarily about Chicago, but it's just about America. If we have the money, we should put that money more towards neighborhoods with high poverty, whether it's black, white, any state. But if people are committing crimes, non-stop violent crimes, and committing a plethora of violent acts, they do need more policing. They should be in jail. So I don't understand trying to protect them, but nonetheless, let's see him trying to explain himself even more when he was questioned about this topic.
Policing alone, you've told me everything else you want. I'm curious, and this does come down to an ideological difference between people. Do you believe that the streets of Chicago would be safer if there were more uniformed police officers on the streets of Chicago?
I believe the city of Chicago and cities across America would be safer if we actually had, affordable housing. Look,
okay,
I'm not saying that
that's not the question I asked.
What?
My question is, and I just need a yes or a no, do you believe the streets of Chicago would be safer if you got all of those other extraordinary programs put back into place, which do have a history of being successful, if that's complemented by having 5,000 more cops on the streets of Chicago?
I don't believe that we should narrow it down to just police officers.
Bro, and here's the thing. I get it. You don't want to just add police. But the question was, would Chicago be safer if there were 5,000 more police officers on the street? You know what's crazy? Chicago's one of the cities that have, what's the phrase I'm looking for? A big portion of their murders go completely unsolved. Meaning that they won't even know who did it for a large portion of their murders. More police officers would solve that. More detectives would solve that. So the fact that he's saying this and he's actively going against his own people, because the people who live in these neighborhoods, people who live in black neighborhoods, because that's what they're talking about. They're just not saying it. The people who live in black neighborhoods that are probably dangerous, they would want more police officers. They don't want criminals roaming their streets. They don't want drive-by shootings. They don't want kids getting shot at bus stops. And these are things that has happened in Chicago. So the fact that he's just outright ignoring this stuff, not acknowledging it, so, oh, we need more money for housing. Bruh, you need to get them criminals off the streets. You need to get them guns off the streets. That's what you need. You need to get them drugs off the streets. And the fact that I'm saying this, and this is like a conservative take, no, this should just be a take. But the mayor of Chicago is saying, nah, we don't need more police. That's not our priority. We need more housing. Bro,
Is what I'm saying. That is an antiquated approach. I'm saying we've invested in detectives.
Mr. Mayor, are you hearing what I'm saying? I'm agreeing with you that all of these other social programs are extraordinarily important. I just need a yes or a no, and then this will be the last time I ask. If you get all of those other social programs that 800 million that New York City does, Los Angeles, other people do with great success, would an additional 5,000 cops on the streets in Chicago help complement those programs to make Chicago safer?
Look, we are working hard to make sure that our police department is fully supported. I don't believe that just simply putting out an arbitrary number around police officers is the answer. What I'm saying is policing and affordable housing. It's policing and mental and behavioral health care services. It's policing and youth employment. It's a full package. Of course, we want to make sure that our police department is fully supported. That's why I've invested in our Detectives Bureau, because what we have seen in the city of Chicago, when we solve crime, it acts and serves as a deterrent. It's policing and all of the other efforts that we're doing. Here's the last thing that I'll say to that. The federal government could work stronger to coordinate.
You know what's crazy? When you're deep cleaning an area, like you're deep cleaning your house, or you're deep cleaning your room, or you're deep cleaning your desk at your job, the first thing that I like to do is I like to dump everything out. Like if I'm folding clothes and I'm cleaning out my drawers, I dump all my clothes on my bed and I dump them all there. And the reason I do that is because the first thing you have to do when you're cleaning or reorganizing something is that you have to put everything on the front table, and you have to, for one, get rid of things that you no longer need, and you have to see everything that you have and restart from the bottom. The reason I'm saying this is because he's not acknowledging this sentiment when he's talking about Chicago. Yes, of course you need youth programs. Of course you need more housing development in poor neighborhoods. Of course you need to invest in the youth. Of course you need mental health places. But the first thing you have to do is get the criminals off the street that are past rehabilitation. You have to get the people off the street who have already committed 3-4 murders, who are already running around with illegal guns, who are already dropped out of school, who are already honestly too far gone. You have to do that. Every society does that. When we clean our own lives, we do that. But that's step number one. You have to get them off the street, because if you don't, and you invest all this money into fixing the youth, into fixing Chicago, then those people are still there. They don't care what you're doing. They're making hundreds of thousands a year on the drug trade. They're making hundreds of thousands a year as hitmen on the street. They're making hundreds of thousands of dollars selling guns. That's what they're doing. You need to get them off the street if you have any chance of rehabilitation. That's just how it is. And I get it, you want to invest in the youth, but that's not going to fix the problem that's already there. That's more so a rehabilitation problem, and that's more so a problem to avoid any further issues. But right now in Chicago, you have to go after the criminals that exist today. And some are beyond rehabilitation. And I'm not trying to target Chicago specifically, but that's the topic that we're at. So yeah, you need to get them off the street. That's step number one, bro. I'm sorry.
With my police department to get guns off the streets of Chicago. We've seen these coordination efforts work. Just a couple of weeks ago, the ATF working with my police department, we removed over 150 guns off the streets of Chicago that were trafficked in through Mississippi and Indiana. No one is saying that police officers don't play an incredible role in driving safety. They play an absolute pivotal role in that. But we have asked law enforcement to do too much. Police officers are being asked to be social workers, counselors. What I'm simply saying is, if we're going to build safe and affordable cities across America, the one thing that safe communities all have in common, they invest in people. We have a poverty issue in the city of Chicago and cities across America. Police officers alone will not put food on the table. Police officers alone will not guarantee a high quality education. Police officers alone won't drive down unemployment. We need all of it. The President of the United States of America and the federal government could restore Medicaid. They could restore SNAP. They could stop defunding our public education system. Here's the most important point here. Justice Brandeis over 100 years ago, the first Jewish American to sit on the Supreme Court. He said that we could either have a democracy or wealth in the hands of the concentrated few.
You know what's crazy? I always hear about poverty issues, and yes, a lot of places in America have poverty issues. The reason why I'm a little more skeptical, and y'all, if I'm wrong, let me know. If I'm wrong, please let me know. But the reason why I'm more skeptical is because, for one, Chicago is one of the richest cities in the country. So it really confuses me how these rich, extremely rich cities have such big poverty issues. That's number one. Number two, a lot of other places in the United States have extremely bad poverty. However, they don't have extremely bad homicide issues. That's number two. So the first thing is, yes, poverty exists in the United States, and poverty does ultimately lead to more crime statistically. However, how is Chicago having such negative poverty issues if they are literally one of the richest cities in the United States? Number one. Number two, let's say you do have poverty issues. How is that directly correlated to the influx of homicide issues that exist in inner cities? Because other places have poverty issues. There's poverty in Arkansas. There's poverty in Minnesota. There's poverty there's poverty everywhere. But when you look at homicide, it always somehow falls into inner black cities. Don't know why, but somebody answer that. If I'm wrong, let me know.
He said, but we cannot have both. We are fighting for our democracy and our humanity right now. This president's nescience of the Constitution will leave irrevocable harm on posterity. That's why, as mayor of the city of Chicago, we are standing up to tyranny, and American cities across this country are doing the same.
Well,
okay, let me know what you guys think about that. I think, you know what? I understand what he's saying. I really do. But I ultimately don't fully agree. Obviously, I don't fully agree. I do think they need more policing. I'm sorry. If you have people running around with switches and ARPs and they're below the age 20 years old in an inner city, how are these kids getting machine guns? How are they getting switches? How? You're the mayor of Chicago, like you said. You need more policing to an extent. If you're running around committing homicides, kids are running around committing homicides, you need more policing. I'm sorry, but once you catch a body, in my opinion, you're beyond rehabilitation in the terms of something like this. That's just my thoughts. Let me know what you all think. My name is LFR Jojo.